Welcome to NCSS Here for You. For over 50 years, Northwestern Counseling and Support Services has been providing access to quality psychosocial services to the residents of Franklin and Grand Isle counties. Over the years, as the needs of the community have changed, so too have the programs and services that we make available to assist children, adolescents, adults, families, and seniors. We take our role in the community seriously, and we strive to provide the highest quality services. According to Erik Erikson, a noted developmental psychologist, every person must pass through a series of 8 interrelated stages over the entire life cycle. NCSS provides a continuum of services to meet the needs of individuals who at any point seek assistance. NCSS's purpose is creating a stronger community, one person at a time. Now, let's get to today's show. I'm Joe Helko, Director of Community Relations for Northwestern Counseling and Support Services, and welcome to another episode of NCSS Here for You. Each month in this program we discuss a human services topic, and we do that with staff from one of our 3 service divisions. Our 3 service divisions are Behavioral Health Services, Children, Youth and Family Services, and Developmental Services. And on occasion, we have members from organizations that NCSS collaborates throughout the year. This month's episode is titled Survivors of Suicide Loss. If you've ever lost a loved one to suicide, you know how devastating that experience can be. Being able to share your experiences with others who have gone through a similar situation can make a big difference in how you cope with the situation. There is a group, Survivors of Suicide Loss, which meets monthly in St. Albans, where all of the participants, including the facilitators, have had someone close to them take their own life. To discuss this group in greater detail, I'm pleased to introduce this month's guests. And they are Tony Stevens, NCSS Crisis Team Leader, Deb Babby, Mobile Crisis Clinician, and Becky Johnson, Group Member. I want to welcome all of you to the program. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Well, to start with, how did you come to find this group?
A local advertisement.
And at that point in time, Becky, I mean, was it something that initially grabbed you because there weren't a lot of other alternatives, or was it?
That's right, Joe. After I experienced the suicide loss of a loved one, I started looking for others. I had a great family support group at home, but they couldn't really understand. And there was a group that met in Burlington. I didn't want to travel that far. And my sister saw the ad. I called Tony, and I've been very pleased. I felt that's the first place I went that people knew my pain. And I still go.
Yeah. Tony, did you want?
Yeah, I could talk a bit about my own experience. I lost my brother Eric to suicide 16 years ago, and at, at the time, obviously it was a huge, shocking, devastating loss for myself and my family. So that, I think initially that's what kind of put me out there in terms of looking for some sort of support. But it took quite a while for me to find that kind of support. Just wasn't really something that was out there at the time when I was looking for it.
So basically, at the time that occurred, you're saying the support system that we're going to talk about today really didn't exist at that point in time.
At least not that I was aware of, yeah.
Yeah. And Deb, as far as your particular situation was?
I lost my brother over 30 years ago to suicide, and at that time there were no groups. It was actually something that wasn't discussed a whole lot about, and it was great to find out that there was, a format for a group to start, and to be able to still come in and share my experience and be with people who could understand that loss.
So when we talk about the group that is being run, let's talk about, first of all, the size of the group, and then also the impact that has on all of the members of the group.
I mean, I think it's not a large group. It's actually pretty small and intimate. You know, we're always kind of looking for new members and trying to get more of the word out there, so that people are aware of the resource and the support. I think, you know, on average, maybe there might be 6 or 7 folks there on any given meeting or month. And I think that probably varies by parts of the state. As Becky mentioned, there is a group that is longer-term group that's been running in the Burlington area. Mm-hmm. And I've heard from some members that have gone to that group that have sort of chosen to come to our group for whatever reason. And a lot of times they talk about it being the size, that it's smaller. Sometimes might feel less intimidating. Maybe more chance to kind of connect with people and you know, sort of make more of a personal connection to other group members.
The group has kind of become extended family. We know each other's story. If I don't show up, I'm likely to get a call from 1 or 2 people to make sure I'm okay or what's going on. And I've made some really good friendships, lasting, I think they will be. And the size of the group is perfect. I'd like more people to enjoy the benefit of it, but I would not want to be in a group of like 40 because we're informal, we laugh, we cry, and are there for each other as we go down that journey. It's like an evolution, how you felt then, how you feel now, and you can relate and measure sometimes how far our own journey has gone compared to somebody new.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I have found interesting is that between the 3 of you, there's different periods of time that have lapsed since those particular incidents. So I think it would be interesting that, like Deb, in your particular case, you said 30 years.
Over 30 years.
So as time has evolved and you've had an opportunity to talk to people in the group setting and that sort of thing. I guess what I'd like to know is, do you feel that once the group was established and being able to talk to other individuals who all had come through similar situations, was that a point at which you were able to maybe get a greater understanding in a shorter period of time of what had occurred? Or?
It definitely has been very therapeutic for me to be able to be part of that group and share. Coming from what you can imagine 30+ years ago, this was a topic that was not openly talked about. And you know, it's a different type of loss and grieving that you go through. So for me to be able to actively come in and acknowledge my brother and talk about him and talk about, you know, the feelings that go along with that and stuff has been really, really helpful for me to move forward, even though it's been that period of time. So I can certainly identify closely with even with what's happening, right, you know, for folks that are new into the group.
I think that brings up a great point. There is such a diversity, I think, of folks in the group. You know, and not only diversity of losses. I mean, people have lost husbands, wives, parents, children, siblings, close friends. I mean, you kind of name it, any relationship, we've sort of seen that represented. And it's a pretty sort of eclectic mix of folks, too. I mean, there's some folks that have sort of been in the area a long time that came into the group knowing each other. Sometimes we joke, I feel like one of the outsiders because I didn't grow up in this area and I don't, you know, it didn't work at such and such a place with people. But there's also people that have come in from both Franklin, Grand Isle counties and Chittenden County and elsewhere that are just sort of brand new. But it's quite a diverse group, which is nice, especially in terms of the length of time, like you brought up, Joe. I mean, you know, 16 years for me, and we've had people come in, I think, as soon as maybe a month or 2 after a devastating loss, which, you know, I don't feel like there's really any time limit on it. You know, there's no one right time to come or wrong time or it's been too long. I think that's really sort of an individual question, and you know, if at all possible, we try to kind of see if people call and reach out prior to showing up, just so we can describe the group, make sure they kind of understand what it's about, make sure it's sort of what they're looking for. And for the most part, people see a flyer or something and maybe call and ask some questions, and want to make that decision for themselves if it's the right time for them. But sometimes people just show up and it's kind of a nice surprise, and we run with it. And the group, I think, really works hard to embrace people and kind of pull new members in and make them feel welcome, which is nice.
I think too, we've seen people come in and get what they need and then move on and go on to other things. But I do think that when they have found value in coming to the group, even if they've come 1 or 2 times, and knowing that they can come back, or there is a sense that there are folks out there that can understand what they're going through, and that can hear what they have to say.
Well, I would think that, and we mentioned it earlier, but the fact that people understand that, including the facilitators, everyone in the room has gone through the experience. It's one thing to say the so-and-so is going to hold a group and they're going to have somebody facilitate it, but maybe the facilitator really didn't have the first-hand knowledge of going through an experience like that. But I think, without a doubt, number one, that all the facilitators have, and secondly, it sounds to me like you're saying that a person can get involved in the group at any point in time. It could be a month after an incident, or it can be 10 or 20 or 30 years, if they feel that they're at a point in their life that they feel that engagement with others is going to be helpful in them gaining closure. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, but I continue with the group because maybe I can share one of my experiences with someone that might help them. I think they've done a great thing for me to be there, and they continue to be like an anchor in this storm of survival, so you can return to a safety zone, so to speak. But for me, part of it now is just going to meet new people and try to be there and share the empathy with them that is so different than any other loss.
I would comment on that. I mean, I think Becky has done an amazing job at sort of pulling new people in, and to see you, just as you described, sort of pass that gift on and kind of pay it forward in a sense that, I think, I trust that you've kind of gotten some things you've needed from the group.
Oh, yes.
And I've seen you sort of instill that on other people, and that's been great. And I think that is equally as rewarding, to kind of feel like you said something, maybe you did something that just is helping somebody else take those steps towards their own recovery or find their own sense of meaning in this tragedy.
Now, when does the group meet?
The second Thursday night, make sure I'm correct here, second Thursday night of each month. And it's over at Northwestern Medical Center. They're nice enough to loan us some space there. It's in the conference center, so it's conference room number 3. Second Thursday night of the month, always starting at 6 p.m., and it usually runs an hour and a half, so 6 to 7:30 p.m. If for some reason, we're not meeting because of weather or something, I tend to try to reach out to everybody I know has attended, just so they don't show up to an empty conference room. Which actually reminds me of something we talked a little bit about, what kind of support was sort of there. If I think back to some of my own story, or how I got to this place, it was a number of years after losing my brother. I was working in the field and sort of trying to make sense of it myself. Also, my family is in another state, so it was kind of already separated from my brother and family. So in some sense, it was easy to forget that I lost him in that sense, because I wouldn't see him until maybe the holidays or go home. So if you don't want to deal with it, sometimes it's easy to not deal with it, geographically as well. But working in the field, I bumped into a woman who was actually running a group in Burlington, this exact type of group, which it was a big aha moment for me. I didn't realize that this existed, so I pulled her aside after this seminar, and we talked about it, and she encouraged me, where it was and if I wanted to attend. So I did go, and I think I went twice, and found it very rewarding. I mean, it was sort of the first time for me, like we've said, that you sort of felt like you were with people that really did understand to some degree. And I was able to compare that to a number of years prior. I had gone to a bereavement support group down in the Chittenden County area that was run through the visiting nurses, which again was very helpful and I think continues to run. But what I noticed when I went to that group a couple of times is that I was the youngest person there, and I was the only person there who had lost somebody to suicide. So I felt different for a couple of reasons. There was all sorts of older adults who had maybe lost partners or parents to, you know, chronic diseases or things. So for a lot of reasons, I kind of felt out of place, but it was as good as it got. So I took what I could from that group and leaned on it a little bit, and then, you know, wasn't attending. And then when I found the Survivor of Suicide support group in Burlington, that was sort of that great moment. And then I think, you know, went back one other night, and the group had moved, and I didn't know that. They had moved, you know, like similarly, they were renting space in a hotel, a conference room, and I didn't know that they had switched locations. So I showed up to an empty conference room. I was like, okay, well, I guess I don't need this anymore, so I'm okay. And you know, that right there was enough to just have me sort of stop and kind of let it go and say I'd gotten what I needed for the moment. So certainly never want to have that happen to any of our group members, but it did get myself and Deb, who I knew had her own loss, kind of thinking about, you know, couldn't we do something like this up here? Because I think we know firsthand, working in the field we do, that there's a lot of suicide in Vermont, let alone Franklin and Grand Isle County. So it would be nice to try to create that level of support up here.
Yeah. So we got together, and I actually met with the same lady that Tony had met with a couple years earlier, and we went to Rhode Island, and we were got trained as facilitators and came back and put the group together, and you know, that's where we're at today.
I think one of the other things too in the promotion of the group that people understand is certainly the fact that everything that is shared there is confidential, and I think that's important because, you know, a lot of times when you talk about groups getting together, no matter what the topical matter of that group is, people need to realize that it's not going to be broadcast news. It's really confidential between those that are in the room that they're sharing, but yet not going to divulge information to others who are not part of that group.
I think it's important for people to know, too, it's definitely a peer-run support. Even though Tony and I work in the field, we come there with a common loss, and that's why we're there. You know, we can say that we're facilitators because we've got the thing started, but we're participants as well, and we're not there to do anything else but to be participants in that group.
And I think that's what they bring to the group, even more than their professionalism and education, is their compassion and their own experiences. And that makes it very comfortable to be with them and know that they're there willingly and for us. And I appreciate that. Becky.
So we say that it's monthly. Does that include all the summer months as well?
Yep.
So it is 12 months a year,
yep.
Unless, as you say, Tony, there's a weather,
sure.
inclement weather scenario. But
yep. And then, you know, I think the sort of enrollment, people's attendance is up and down. It's certainly not mandatory. There's no expectation. We just want to be there for folks if they want to come by. Oftentimes we'll offer to sort of maybe call people, do a quick reminder call a few days prior to the group, because we all have hectic, busy lives, and sometimes the intention is there to go, but things sort of get in the way. So certainly we all understand that, and as you said, you know, if we don't see somebody after a little while and they say they're coming, you know, the group kind of rallies around itself and wants to make sure everyone's doing okay. And I think people have gotten together outside of group and sort of formed their own relationships and sort of support, which is nice.
Which is another nice byproduct of that. And I would imagine that there's probably some individuals, again, everybody deals with situations differently, that perhaps they're involved in the group for a period of time, then maybe they feel that they're going to move on, but then because of circumstances may feel that they want to come back to the group. Has that occurred as well?
Yeah, it's definitely an open group, and you know, there's no time frame and when you can come and how long you can come.
And I think, you know, with grief especially, you know, it is up and down, and everybody goes through their own stages and cycle in their own manner. There's really no right or wrong about it. So, you know, my experience is different than Deb's, than Becky's. We all have some similar things, a lot of the same questions we're left with and things we struggle with, especially from a suicide loss. But, you know, it's up and down. People might have other losses or stressors in their life that sort of bring that back to the present for them more. You know, even if it's been a number of years, I find myself really thinking about my brother. Well, what is that all about? Maybe I was just home for the holiday. So, you know, it's up and down, and and that's just sort of the nature of the beast, I think.
It's such a great place to share experiences, though, that, you know, there's some things that we talk about sometimes that we, like you were just saying, going home and the holidays and things, and sometimes something comes up in our life or there's a reminder, and we process that in some ways, seems like somewhat different than what we would normally do if we were sitting across the kitchen table with family or friends who might not understand where we're coming from, and it's a great place to do that and feel comfortable with in doing that. And we cry and we laugh, and you know, it's a nice combination of things that we can deal with emotions.
It helped me realize that even though they're all different situations, that there's a commonality there also. And sadly, it leaves us with more questions than answers. Suicide does, but in the group you find that there's a comfort in the fact that, you know, they're in the same place you are, or you were, and we don't have the answers at group, but we're there to listen and share our own experiences, and I think it's something more people should take advantage of, because you don't have to be alone.
Does it also help, do you think, it's a question of, by being a part of the group, does it help individuals who go to the group to also maybe deal with other family members or other friends if the topic comes up, to be able to maybe express themselves better? Maybe I'm not making sense, but I'm thinking in terms of individuals that maybe have not, in a first-hand way, experienced someone close to them who has completed a suicide. But in the group, I totally understand how everybody has been through a very devastating situation. They can all connect around that. But what I'm thinking is, when you go outside that circle, and whether it's other family members or friends, or when the subject matter comes up, does having been a member of the group help to maybe talk in a different sense, or a little more openly about things, or does that not come into play at all?
I think it can make it more comfortable because you've had an opportunity to speak out with what you need, and I think it, you know, it takes, you're a little less raw, for lack of a better term, when you're going out and you're talking to people in the community or family members who have been hesitant to talk, because it somehow, in a crazy sort of way, normalizes things, because you're sitting with a group of people who have had, you know, somewhat of a common experience. So for me, it, you know, it does make that easier sometimes to have some of those harder conversations, because I have a place to put it, at least at one time a month, that really hard part of it.
And I think family dynamics, we see as a group, we bring different experiences with us, and sometimes we can offer, well, this helped in my situation, you might try that. For an example, like birthdays are really hard as anything you would celebrate, so maybe you make a new tradition, or you share what you do differently now, because life does go on.
That's a great point. I mean, you know, milestones like birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, where the whole dynamic has changed, and how do you make that so that it can become a positive going forward?
I think that's been a great piece to hear different people in the group kind of talk about what they've done, you know, what they did differently, or how they tried to deal or cope with that situation that's already passed by. Or people seeking out those same questions from people saying, I'm stressing out about, you know, it's the anniversary of my husband's death. What would I do? You know, people sort of looking for that, those insights and tidbits from the group. Not that any one of us has the answer, but, you know, am I going to trust some ideas and things from people who have gone through this? Yeah, I'm going to definitely take that under consideration and take what makes sense for me in my situation. And I'd much rather have a little bit of a choice there to see what I think might help me than have nothing.
Yeah, that's a good point. What other dynamics come that occur inside the group do you feel help the individuals who come to group when they're not there? I mean, again, I realize that every situation is different, everybody processes differently, but maybe just some examples of how having that opportunity once a month to come together can really help someone make it through the next month?
I think by the very fact of knowing that we're there, you know, that you could reach out if you wanted to call somebody in the group in between group meeting times, to know that you know, that you're not alone. And I think we can carry that through the month and know that we have that opportunity to meet with folks who are going to understand our loss. And that helps a lot, I think.
Yep.
That they're there not just an hour and a half a month, they're there all the time. And some of us have made connections outside of work, so there's actually a nice little support system there. And for me, sometimes I would go home in more pain than I arrived, but it was all part of a growth, and it was good. And I found myself, as many tears as I shed, I still wanted to go back for more. And then that subsided also. It's a process, and so it's been very good for me.
I think one thing that I've seen a number of group members really try to make some sort of positive shift also, and maybe outside of the group turn to more of an advocacy role or an education, sort of spreading the word either about the group, the resources, or trying to do more around suicide prevention. So it's been nice to see some people take a really active role in their own personal life, and it felt like that information came out in the group, and that was sort of a stepping stone for them to take action in other parts. So that's been nice to see as well.
Well, it's hard to believe, but our time is up, and I want to thank my special guests, Tony Stevens, Deb Babby, and Becky Johnson, for being on the show today and sharing their insights on how survivors of suicide loss can cope after a devastating experience with the support of the Survivors of Suicide Loss Group. I also want to thank you, the viewer, for spending time with us again this month. You can learn more about NCSS and all of our programs and services by logging on to ncssinc.org. I'm Joe Halco, and I'll be back next month with another episode of NCSS Here for You. This has been another episode of NCSS Here for You. We hope that you found today's discussion informative and educational. For over 50 years, Northwestern Counseling and Support Services has been providing access to quality psychosocial services to the residents of Franklin and Grand Isle counties. Over the years, as the needs of the community have changed, so too have the programs and services that we make available to assist children, adolescents, adults, families, and seniors. Thanks once again for tuning in this month. NCSS's purpose remains creating a stronger community, one person at a time.